Welcome, everyone. In our last video, we spoke about not like us. And in this video, we ask ourselves, who are we? Who is the us that's in question? It's a big topic, but we're going to tackle it today. So I want to welcome the Community Cuts people to our video. And I do ask you to like and subscribe. We're trying to grow a community here that may ask tough questions and may have controversial answers potentially, but we need to have these hard conversations to understand where we are in space and time and in the politics of America, the United States, and the world. I personally feel we need a much more sophisticated approach to understanding where we are and what the true threats are to our continued existence. And I say that because I actually think there are threats to our continued existence.
Yes. Welcome to Community Cuts family. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Not like us. Who is us? Who are we? And what are we willing to put up with? That's the question. What are we willing to put up with?
hmm And are we willing to stand up? For how long will we allow the compromise of our communities, our families, and our children? It's up to us. But who are we really?
We are the ones that we've been waiting for. And as soon as you realize that you, family, you are the ones that you've been waiting for, then we can proceed forward. You are the ones that you've been waiting for. In the time and space that we are in, step up to the plate. We have a big election that's coming up in November, and that's important. We're not saying nay or yay or who or Democrats or Republicans or Democrats.
I might say.
Oh, you might say, okay. All right. So Catherine
uh,
may
um,
say,
I tend to be very radical, so
okay. Uh,
hopefully people will tolerate that radical perspective.
I'm the scale, so I made this, this weigh out everything. But at the end of the day, most importantly, who are we? Are we willing to, not say anything? Are we willing not? Are we willing to just allow things to just be, or are we willing to stand up and fight? And the Bible talks about taking it by force. What are we willing to do, Catherine? What are you willing to do?
I'm willing to not vote.
Okay.
And I say that because our vote is energy. It comes from the essence, just like money is energy.
Hmm.
It's an expression of energy linked to power and potential. So, yeah, I think that um, we probably come from different perspectives. I would say that because I identify with the label ADOS,
Okay.
American descendants of slaves, or something like that, it amounts to. And I feel that the curve of history
Hmm.
as it's existed has been one of the subjugation of American born Black people who are descendants of slaves. And much of the politics and much of the propaganda disseminated around the world is designed to undermine American descendants of slavery. And I say that because, as much as I love my African and Caribbean diasporic family, as often as not, they come into America predisposed to believing that American blacks are somehow inferior to themselves, which means that they have adopted a great deal of the propaganda that whites have adopted about American black people, descendants of slaves. So we are subject to many waves over and over again of people who, upon arriving in this country, are enfranchised at the expense of American descendants of the slave system. So, as much as we look at immigrants now and say, oh, well, they came in, they get $20,000, they get credit cards, they get food, they get housing. While this is true, it's happened repeatedly again and again and again and again and again and again. So it leaves me to wonder, what is it about American black people, descendants of slaves, that is so dangerous to the status quo that they would wrap their entire political focus on undermining and destroying us, to the extent that they'll welcome anyone, absolutely anyone, but us. The exception in terms of anyone, I would say Haitians suffer more.
Okay.
And Haitians suffer more because they were the first and only black population that liberated themselves
Okay.
from slavery and from oppression. And they've been paying the price ever since. American black people, very much in line with that, have been punished ever since slavery was eliminated. And to understand that the elimination of slavery wasn't about slavery, it was about economics. The South had a benefit of having the labor of black people, and the North wanted in on that deal. So they opposed slavery because they wanted black people to be their wage slaves.
Okay. I agree.
And that's really, in my opinion, what fueled the whole fight for or against slavery. It was about who has access to those people who are actually creating the wealth of this nation. So before any, there were immigrants in the beginning, before the country, a flood of people from Europe who basically killed off the indigenous Aboriginal people of this land for the most part and took possession of this land. And everything since then was and is to depossess those people of this land, which include who we consider to be Native Americans, yes. But Native Americans were not the Aboriginal people found here by the Europeans. Black people were.
Exactly. I was going to come to that. Yes. Yes.
If you look at the old
yeah.
texts that were written in the 1700s and 1800s, they found black people here.
That's what I believe.
And the first people that were infused into Black people were Asian people,
Right.
which is fine because they started out Black too. That's another story. But I'm just saying that I think it's important for all of us as a community of melanated people to understand the dynamic that we're dealing with. And I think I commented in the last show, one of the ways that um, this land was taken over was through trickery. I mean, that's how you come up with the whole forked tongue. They speak with forked tongue because they come as friends. They and we as melanated people tend to be open-hearted. We welcome strangers. All the explorers were welcomed. They were welcomed into the existing tribes, into the families they married in. But it was the children of those marriages that broke the treaties and signed treaties with the colonizers that allowed those colonizers to take over the lands of the Americas.
That's correct.
And so I think we need to take into account as Black people because, we're all Black people. No matter where you come from, you kind of went through a similar process, whether it was Brazil or anywhere in South and Central America, whether it was in the African continent, we all went through this process, a process in which we were disabused of our possession, of our ability to be sovereign in our own nations. And it's just really important for us to understand that we all come through the same path. But what happens, the okey doke, the big con, is convincing Black melanated people around the world, well, you can be a little bit closer to being white if you hate Black people in America. So we have perpetually been kept at the bottom of the social structure. Initially, it was the early immigrants, right? Then, now it's the new immigrants. But it's the same story. And the question is why? Why is it so imperative for this so called Republic of the United States of America to disenfranchise the American Black person? I happen to believe because they know that we were here and that they have
true.
dispossessed the melanated people of America of this land. So we cannot be allowed to stand up and be conscious and realize the dispossession that has taken place. So this is what I mean by I'm radical.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you. I
I'm
hear
very
you.
radical.
I hear you. All that you say is true, and my argument is that we ought to know who we are.
Hmm.
If we are, if knowledge is to know oneself, then this is home. It's not like we just came here in 1619. No, we've been here.
No, we've been here. I mean, archaeologically, they go back in history
Right.
10,000 years, 20,000 years, about as far as they can go back. And they'll tell you, oh, well, America had Australian Aboriginals. No, they were American Aboriginals.
Right. Right.
And if we think in terms of civilization, those people we call African people are really melanated people,
Well,
are equatorial people. We were everywhere.
yeah, the clue is to have the blueprint is the pyramid being all over the world. That
Mhm.
is the staple. And once you know that is a staple of who we are, then you know we've been here.
Mhm.
And it reminds me of this woman that she was living in Florida, and the developers were trying to take her land. And her husband said not to sell the land. He hadn't passed. She's 90 plus years old. Come to find out that they owned the land before America was America.
My great grandfather was like that. He owned land, massive land, which I assess to have been tribal lands
Right.
in Virginia. And Virginia had a curious law back in, I don't remember the year, but it was after slavery, I think. Though I have the receipts, I just didn't bring them with me because I didn't know what we'd talk about, but maybe I'll do something later. So understand that in the early years of this country, 1700s to 1800s, Virginia was all of the South. So there was no Carolina, there was no Georgia,
Mhm.
there was no Florida. None of these states existed. There was just Virginia in the South. And Virginia came up with a law reclassifying Aboriginal people as Negroes.
Mhm.
So the Negroes, the term Negro comes from the reclassification of dark skinned Aboriginal people, which is what they were called in the textbooks before that.
Mhm.
So we, as melanated people, are indigenous to the Americas.
So
So
that means that we're not foreigners.
we're not
Right.
foreigners,
Not foreigners.
we're not immigrants.
Correct.
And what you see in terms of the tribal um, similarities is because we are of similar groups of people with similar
Mhm.
cultures and actually had interaction. I studied with this organization called the Earth Center, which was founded by this gentleman named Master um, um, Nora Benedict. I forget his full name. But he actually came from Burkina Faso, which is kind of interesting seeing the politics of Burkina Faso. But he was charged with his elders to come to America to remind us of who we were. He ultimately died very young,
Mhm.
probably poisoned, but that's just my projection. But his assertion is that Africa and America were like sister continents. There was interrelationships. There was, they could sail back and forth. We suffer from a system that tries to convince us that we are historically primitive, but we're not. Maybe historically naive, but not primitive. So his assertion was that America and Africa were kind of sister continents and had the same kind of philosophies, the same kind of spiritual practices. Of course, there are differences. Pyramids in America look different than pyramids in Africa, but actually, it's highly probable that the pyramids in America are older. The way they're built is probably older than the pyramids in Egypt, so to speak.
Mhm.
But even the pyramids in Egypt are not as old as the pyramids in, say, the Sudan and in the other areas of the African continent. And
And Mexico has some artifacts as well.
and if you look at the original scrolls and texts
Mhm.
of the people in South America, you see dark-skinned people.
Mhm.
The Mayans, the Aztecs, these were dark-skinned people. Even if you go there now, you'll find them.
Mhm.
They don't have power. It's the mixed race people who have power in every country, but we were everywhere.
They haven't left. They
Mhm.
have not left.
Or been eliminated, just like we're not eliminated here. But my point is that the game has always been to destroy ourselves from the inside. So here in the Americas, you had people who were separated from their families at very early ages, so they
Mhm.
couldn't know their names or who they were or what their histories were. They had all these laws that outlawed the celebration of tribal celebrations and all that. So I would suggest that we're still in that era. And just like when we were strong tribal communities,
Mhm.
it was through a certain kind of trickery and doublespeak that people were turned against themselves.
Mhm.
And I only bring out the sort of this mixed race thing
Mhm.
because it's not universal. It's just that somebody would target someone that's in the hierarchy of power within a particular Aboriginal civilization. And because they had different politics, different understandings of life, they didn't have a problem of a chief daughter marrying in with one of these settlers or explorers. It's just that what would happen is the children would be separated from the group, educated in Europe,
Mhm.
and then brought back as a pseudo European. And you'll find the same thing happened in many of the African countries.
Let me ask you a question. May I ask you a
Mhm.
question? How could one tap into themselves? How could one tap into, it's like tapping into your DNA.
Mhm.
What's your,
Um, well, I think that's an important question because all that we are is still here within our DNA,
mhm.
within our, not even just the DNA, but we can make that connection to our ancestors
Correct.
and we can invoke the power of our ancestors to work with us. But even before getting to that point, we actually have to heal our ancestors.
Okay.
So we have a lot of ancestral spirit that have been soul captured
Mhm.
and don't have a direct access to
Mhm.
us, their progeny. So, but we can only heal our ancestors by healing ourselves, healing our own DNA.
Okay.
When we heal ourselves,
Okay.
it ripples back through time and it ripples forward through time.
Okay.
So, in a manner of speaking, our work is to heal all this damage.
Is praying a part of the healing, or what to do? I'm just trying to figure out that we can help our listeners, our viewers.
Well, praying depends on who you're praying to.
Correct.
So, I don't know how to explain how radical my thinking is, but
All right.
this whole Jesus character,
Well, we don't have to.
well, hey,
Hey.
if they're going to censor me, they might as well censor me for what I think.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Let's do it.
the Jesus character that we know is not the true Jesus. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that there wasn't a Jesus,
Mhm.
but the one we know isn't the real thing. We have a fraud, we have an imposter in our Christian Bibles created by an authority that was using Christ as the excuse for genociding our people.
Okay.
So when the what was it? The Portuguese, the
Mhm.
Spanish came here. The Pope in Rome created a creed. They called them papal bulls, and in this papal bull, it gave license to the destruction of non-Christian people, which everyone would have been because they made up Christianity in Europe. At least the Christianity we know they made up in Europe. But Christianity goes so much further back.
Mhm.
And you'll see hints of it in what we call our Bible. Um, but Christianity exists, predates what we know as Christianity, and predates the era within which we're told that Christ was born.
And I believe Christ, if I'm stand corrected, that means the anointing,
Oh, yeah, the anointed one,
the anointed
or to
one,
be anointed.
to be anointed. And that's why
And
he's,
why is there only one anointed being? There's not just one.
but he also said in the scriptures, I was reading in John 10, 42 verses, also in Psalms as well, that ye are gods. Ye are gods. And we,
Yeah, but what is a God?
mm,
That's the question. Is
mhm.
a God the Most High, Almighty, or is a God something else?
I think the scripture was talking about we are small g's, that ye are
Yeah, but
gods.
I think the small g is a big deal. It's important to
Yeah.
understand the distinction between whatever force created life and us who came through that
Hmm.
process.
Hmm.
Potentially, yeah. Okay, we could be gods. Are we gods now? Maybe.
I think probably is when the anointing sets in, when we are
Anointed
w-
by whom?
when we walk in that anointing, meaning that we are believing that we are those people.
Unless it's a delusion. We believe a lot of things that are not true.
Mm.
I'm not I'm not denying it. I'm just saying, really, would the world look like this if we were all gods? And if it looks like this with us all being gods, then what's a god? Can't be that good.
Well, I think at the end of the day that we have been under a spell, and we have not woken up to who we are as a people, as a person, as an individual.
Hmm.
And so, if we walk in that space and time that we don't know, that we are not aware of, then yes, we're going to fall by the wayside until we understand, yeah, we are those that we are called to be.
No, I agree. I agree. But what are we being called to be?
Whatever the Spirit is calling us to be,
Hmm.
and I think is waking up to believing that, you know, when they say faith, what is faith? What is faith? We are faith.
Are we? I don't know. If you look historically,
Hmm.
faith is kind of a waste of time.
Okay.
What have we ever gotten by faith but beat up? To me, I think faith is believing what you're told instead of what you know.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that there isn't a faith that's real. I'm just not clear that what we're talking about is real.
Mm. Okay.
Because we have faith in a Bible that shows us a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus.
But I'm talking about faith in the terms of who we are as a person, as an individual, that we were made by the Most High God by faith. We are made by Him. We emulate Him.
Hmm.
We mirror Him, and
Him?
or we mirror God.
I'm just saying.
We mirror the Most High God.
I mean, when I was very young and
Mhm.
in high school, I wrote a poem. I don't remember the exact poem, but the gist of it was, okay, we're made in the image of God.
Mhm.
Who can make people? Women can make people.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not a partnership, but we have the physiological capacity to nurture the growth of a fetus into a human being.
Mhm.
To me, that's more like God than not.
I agree. That is. But when we look at the essence of everything, how everything was created, we know without a shadow of a doubt there is a God.
Do we?
At least I believe.
I think where I part company with you is not that I don't believe or have faith. I just don't believe in the concept of a God.
Okay.
To me, a God is an office. The guy been appointed to be in control of a certain area, like a king
Mm,
or a lord or a
mm,
duke,
mhm,
a God, same thing, only on the spiritual level.
mhm,
But it's not the top guy.
mhm,
I don't believe gods are the top guy because guy or girl, whatever, gal, because the world is just too messed up.
mhm,
I don't believe it.
mhm. So, creation, where did it come from?
It didn't come from a god. It came from something more powerful than a god.
So, what's the name of the most powerful other than the God? I mean, I don't know if we put a
Well, if
name.
I don't know if there is a name. I mean, a lot of the scriptures talk about you can't speak God's name. Well, maybe because God has no name. Because it pre-existed language, pre-existed existence, it had no need for a name.
But you agree that is bigger than us.
In a manner of speaking, I think it's bigger than us, but I think we are also manifestations of it.
Hmm.
So it is
Oh
in
yeah.
us.
Oh, that we agree on.
It is in us.
We
Whatever
agree. Yeah.
whatever this creative force was, is the force that we have within us.
Correct.
But we've been manipulated and tricked out of understanding that
Of
connection.
course, I agree with that.
And we've been shown a way in which we bow down our in servitude to this creative force when I don't believe that's what is called for or desired. It's our job, in my opinion,
Mhm,
to embody that force in this realm, the physical realm.
mhm,
But through the, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years that there has been an existence on this physical realm, we've been tricked out of our inheritance. And this just, and
So
I'm not saying that this is about just black people. I think all humanity
yeah,
has been tricked.
so we do.
It's not just us.
Yeah, so we do agree, or let me put it like this: that we have a soul
I think we do.
and we have a spirit.
Mhm.
All right, that comes with the creation, the
Mhm.
creator.
And what messes that up? The mind.
Exactly. And so, with that being said, I think that for our viewers, I think that if we can help our viewers to understand how to tap into oneself to be able to grow and to be able to understand who they are. Because for me, there is a creator,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a soul and we have a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
which we didn't give ourselves it, but it's here. We got it, and so we have to learn how to tap into that window, that space and time that we can, you know, learn, have knowledge, and grow, because we grow from level to levels, but we do that within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I think the first, for me anyway, thing to that I needed to realize that made a difference to me was to understand how deep the descent has been from that place. That we have not evolved through time, but have devolved through time.
And the question is, why?
Well, I think that being reflected on the earth is what's happening in the so-called heavenly realm. I think the heaven that we're looking at and thinking of isn't where the Most High resides. It's where the creation of the Most High resides. We're not in physical form.
Okay.
But I don't think that, I think that what we're seeing is a reflection of that.
Okay.
So in that regard, it's not just about black and white people, it's
No,
about
it's
humanity.
about humanity, because it's in essence, it's not about color. It's not about black and white. It's about humanity.
Hmm.
That's where you and I, we connect on that.
Yeah, so I'm not speaking in terms of um, having resentments or anger
Mm.
at whatever people for whatever was done through time, but to understand that all of humanity is being corrupted out of a fight between, I would say, celestial beings, beings who are not physical, and the Most High. Because the Most High Creator
Mm.
endowed its creation with everything.
Correct.
And it's up to us to embody that.
Right. And I think to embody that, we have to have faith and we have to believe that. And as we believe, first faith, believing, and then know it.
I think knowing comes first.
Okay, let's say no one comes first.
Yeah.
All right, but
Because if you know, you don't need faith and belief.
mm,
Faith and belief is a placeholder for knowing, in my opinion.
okay, there is a scripture that says it's impossible to please God without faith. That's scripture.
I don't care
Okay,
who wrote it and when.
okay,
Was it written 2 million years ago? Was it written hundreds of thousands of years ago? Or was it written at the advent of Christianity as
mm,
propagated by Rome?
mm.
I don't trust anything that Rome told us.
Okay. No, I hear you. I'm not going to argue with that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
trust
yeah.
Rome. And
So
we're still living, in my opinion, in the Roman Empire.
okay, okay. So with that being said, there is an evolution that's within us that has to grow,
Hmm.
right? And as we tap into our existence, into our essence, there are answers there,
Hmm.
right?
I agree.
As we tap into that, my thing is to get beyond those things and start to grow,
Hmm.
right? Because we can't stay here stagnant.
Well, we can, but it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea to stay stagnant.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, we want to grow, and as we are, as elders, we want to help our younger generation, Gen Z or whomever, to start to tap into themselves because that's where they're going to find the answers. The answers is not going to be in the newspaper or on television or the internet. It's going to be within.
Yeah, well, maybe that's where what you're talking about, faith, comes in. Because people have to at least believe something else is possible to find that something else. So maybe that's where faith plays a role.
Yeah, there has to be, for me, there has to be a seed, as to that's within us because everything is a seed, you know. And as you drill down and try to uncover the seed.
Mm,
Right now we're living in a thin veil universe, and so as we drill down, we learn. We learn about who we are.
or
Mhm,
we die and our souls are captured
mhm.
by evil forces. I think it's really serious.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not unserious, it's very, very serious. And I think that a lot of what we experience in the world in terms of poisons and toxins and pollutions
Hmm.
and mind numbing media
Correct.
is about destroying and stealing our soul
Mhm.
and our life force energy.
We talked about something a little earlier, just let's say minutes ago, in terms of before we started talking about people in general, their energy is being stolen,
Hmm.
right? And that seems that could be in this sphere now, where people energies are being stolen, and if one is not cognizant of it, then they can find themselves on the back burner and not realizing that they're on the back burner. Correct.
Because they're running in circles. We run in
Correct.
circles,
Correct.
um, and can't break through because the structure is such, it's designed to keep a certain class of people disempowered.
So, with that being said, how do we tell the people, our viewership, you know, to be cognizant and to find themselves drilled down, drilling down, and to know oneself? Because if you don't know thyself, then how is one going to move on if they don't know thyself?
Yeah, I think that's the dilemma is it's easy to know yourself. You just have to pay attention to yourself and listen to what's arising within you.
Hmm.
But the head is programmed against you, so you're not going to listen. So young people are being taught from a very young age. That's too high.
Okay.
Young people are taught from a very young age not to trust themselves.
Mm.
And that's how it all starts.
I guess my thing is to awaken. Let's awaken. Let's not move in slumber anymore. And how to do it? How to get people to get out of that slumber mentality?
Um,
Because if they stay in that mentality, then they're not able to aid. They're not able to jump.
well, it's difficult because it's hard to recognize what slumber is because we have been convinced to engage in the status quo
Mm,
of power and dominance and being in a warring state of mind. So it's going to be a case by case basis, individual by individual. And I think once it reaches a certain threshold, things will shift. But it depends on the courage of individuals to be able to speak what they know to be the truth.
Mhm.
So you can go along to get along,
Oh yeah, and that's not going to work.
and you can fall for the okey doke.
It's not. Yeah.
You can be convinced that you have to continue to follow the people that have wrought nothing but destruction. Why? Because somebody else potentially can bring more destruction? Is that really a wise position to take?
Mm.
So, um,
You know, it's.
I think
Go ahead.
fear is the problem. We need to
Yeah.
stop being afraid.
Yeah. Stop being afraid. Live thy life. Um, as above, so below, and start to really get to know oneself and not live in any kind of trepidation, because what that does is steals one energy.
Hmm. And it's almost impossible not to live with trepidation because we live in an environment. There's air, there's water, and there's fear. We
Yeah.
live in that environment.
Mhm. We do.
So it takes a lot of inner searching to be able to find any kind of balance within the environment we live.
And
But that's
that's
what it's going to take, I
yeah,
think.
and that's going to take, like you said, inner searching, and to understand oneself.
Hmm.
You have to drill in, and you have to go in, and it cannot be in a way that you have doubt. Once doubt comes in, then it is hard to dive down into oneself, into one's spirit, because once you're diving in, you're diving into the DNA as well. It's not like you're not diving into DNA, you are, because now you're knowing oneself, you're knowing one proposition of who your ancestors are, and you're now trying to, because once you uncover them, you're uncovering yourself as well.
Hmm.
So the most important thing that I want to tell people: get to know oneself, and not be afraid of who you are, and not allow anyone to tell you who you are. You are a king. You are blessed. You are wealthy. You are healthy. You are everything that you believe that you are. And that
Potentially.
potentially. And as you believe, because there have to be some foundational structure within you. And once you have that foundational structure, then you can build off it. Everything is about building. You're not building off the air. You're building off something that's within, some substance.
Yeah. Well, the substance is there. It's just a matter of finding it.
Right.
But I think for me, the key
Mhm.
is challenging yourself with regard to doubt, fear, and trepidation.
It's true.
You have to be willing to feel that and not be conquered by it, move through it.
Correct.
And some people are just born rebels. I mean, I was born into the Catholic faith. I left when I was 9.
As I, but not nine. Yeah, but as I.
I left when I was 9.
Right.
And it was only because I happened to come into the world with a thin veil. I was connected to spirit from birth.
Okay.
And so when people lied, I was like, wait, what? It didn't make sense to me because it was not what I knew to be true. And I was lucky enough to have a mother who let me do that.
Hmm.
I mean, she wasn't happy about it. She was hoping I'd come back into the fold, but she gave me that space to say, I don't believe this anymore.
That's like and I've learned a lot from Terrence Howard.
Hmm.
He came in knowing, and there was I gather, a thin veil for him to have that knowledge.
Mhm.
And some of us have it, and some of us get it later on. But
I think technically we all have it.
We all have it.
To be quite as kept, yeah,
right,
we all have it.
we don't have it.
The problem is how efficient was the fight against it.
Mm,
How programmed were our parents?
correct, correct,
How programmed is our society?
correct.
How likely are we to be able to survive
hmm
being contrary?
hmm
I was blessed because I had a mother who was like, I'll pray for you, you know, which probably worked because I came back around.
Mhm.
But yeah, but some of us go through lives being literally beaten into submission.
Mhm.
And then we have a society, a political structure that beats us into submission. Not just us, but 500, 600 years of our ancestors have been beaten into submission.
Mhm.
So
Do you think
you have to believe in a God if we can come up with a conscious thought at all.
Do you believe? I mean, some people believe that we're starting to wake up, and some people believe that it's not happening. What's your belief?
I think we're living in an era, cosmically,
Mhm.
when it is our time to wake up.
Okay.
And that's the reason that so much chaos is being sown in the world to prevent people from waking up.
Gotcha.
So it depends on whether or not we have enough strength to get through the chaos that's being inflicted upon us.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are and recognize, a lot of people call themselves star seeds.
Mm.
I don't consider myself to be a star seed because I was born in the 50s, so I'm
Mhm.
something else.
Mhm.
But the question is, I think in this era, we're all coming in with full consciousness.
Correct.
The question is, can we survive the campaign against consciousness? Can we not engage in attacking other people?
Mhm.
Can we not engage in judging other people? Can we not engage in taking an overwhelming amount of power over other people? Can we not engage in destroying life? And however we do that. Like even right now, it's really easy to look into the Middle East or into Europe and say, oh, those people are bad, those people are bad.
Mm.
But who's feeding the weapons into those conflicts? It's us.
Yeah.
It's America.
It's a deep,
However you judge,
deep dialogue.
however you judge the conflict, the reason it's so horrific is because American weapons are being flooded into those conflicts. And then if you take a 2 or 3 steps back, you'll realize it was the American espionage, the CIA and the deep state that initiated most of these conflicts. And it's the system of the United States. I won't blame it on America. It's really the United States. The United States who genocided the Aboriginal people of this country, took the remnants of those Aboriginal people, divided them into reservations and slave camps. That is controlling Africa right now. Why is Africa poor? It's the richest continent on the planet in terms of its mineral wealth, in terms of its agricultural potential and its weather, in terms of its waters and rivers. But the people are in abject poverty. Why? Because this apparatus, whether you call it the United States or something else, is doing that.
Mm.
And we as Americans, Oops. We as Americans who like our wealth and middle class and going to highfalutin schools and being able to have stores with products from all over the world, by virtue of what we buy, are starving people around the world. Why do we have oil? Maybe it has something to do with all the wars in which we, the United States, Europe, the West, has murdered millions of people. We think what's happening in Gaza is bad because we're seeing it on social media. But what about Iraq and Afghanistan and all these countries in which millions of people were bombed and are dead? Why? Because Americans like to be middle class. So I would ask, do we have clean hands or do we all have blood on our hands? And we look at the American politics, it's all crap. It's boasting about how they're going to take control of some other place in the world and subjugate those people and take their wealth. That's what American politics is. So when we engage in, especially the United States, maybe Canada, a few of the Central and South American countries, because the same process happened there. Why are all the politicians, no matter where you are in the world, especially in the Americas, white skinned? Go to any Latin America, South American country, they're all white skinned. Not because white skin is bad, it's because whiteness itself is a false mechanism that has been imposed. Before the United States, nobody considered themselves as white. People were Italian, they were Irish, they were Namibian, or whatever country they came from, but nobody thought of themselves as white until this system was implemented. And that was the way of getting people to buy in. Oh, I'm white. I have privilege. You're black. You're inferior. And it just scales up through the shades. The deeply melanated people are kept at the most impoverished.
Mm.
The brown skinned people get a play, they can get educated, they can get opportunities. The light skinned people get power, but that power is predicated on keeping the gate closed to everybody else.
So you're saying the gatekeepers.
Yeah, so when we are out there voting for people,
Mm.
I think we need to have more discernment about, well, what role are they actually playing? I mean, I was one of the happiest people in the world when Obama was elected, at least the first time. He didn't do anything for black people. In fact, he's one of the people who created some of the conflicts that killed millions of people in Africa and the Middle East. Why did he do that? Because he was groomed to do that. He wasn't just some black politician. He came from a certain family. He was guided through a certain political process to which he barely participated, just so he could get into a position where he could be put in power. And why did they need Obama to be in power? Because people with melanin, I don't particularly like people of color. I like melanated people. That's my personal preference. Because actually, everybody's got melanin. It's just a matter of identifying with your humanity is when you identify with your melanin. He did nothing to help people who were melanated. He only put in place systems, not in America, but in Europe, in Africa, in Central and South America, that disenfranchised melanated people, killed melanated people. He started with the extrajudiciary drones.
Mm.
He's the guy who started using drones to assassinate people. Obama did that. So we're celebrating our first black president, but he's a person who was groomed to take the role so that the radical melanated people would be appeased. And I look at the current election in the same way.
Okay.
I think that because melanated people have become so hyper aware of the failures of the parties, Democrat, Republican, to do anything beneficial, they had to go back to the old tropes. They had to go back to demonizing one side. Why? So we could be afraid? Why should we be afraid of Donald Trump? He's an ass. Why should we fear him? There's more of us than him.
Mm.
Why should we fear him? And especially when, I know this is much more political than you like, but especially when,
Go ahead.
especially when Biden is infinitely more racist than Trump. Now, I'm not going to vote for Trump. I think he's an ass.
Right.
I wouldn't vote for Biden. He's a racist ass.
Mm-hmm.
And Kamala is not falling very far from the tree. I'm sorry, she's just not.
Okay.
She's one of those people who is playing to the tropes, the ideology. I'm going to be the first black woman president. Okay. But what are you going to do? And we could look, we don't have to challenge her blackness. Anybody can claim to be black because everybody came from blackness. So what? What have you done and what are you going to do? She hasn't done anything beneficial for melanated people. And she's not going to. So, why? Because she has brown skin like me, I should allow someone to be put in the office that's going to ultimately take my rights away? Why? Why would I
Yeah.
do that?
I think that we're so divided.
We're,
Black America is divided
we're hoodwinked.
or hoodwinked.
We're hoodwinked and we are inundated with fear
Right.
and we are holding on to that very flimsy thing that can give us a sense of pride. But I'm not proud of bringing someone into office who's going to sell us out.
Mm.
I don't care what color skin they have.
Right.
It's not just Kamala, it's Bernie Sanders. We all thought he was representing the people. He sold us out. The so called squad, who now are being targeted by the Jewish lobby and being driven out of office. I think there's like 3 cases now of major political figures have been driven out of office. Did those people ever speak out against those forces? No, they defended it. But defending it isn't enough. You have to be abject, enslaved to those forces. And if you're not, they'll destroy you. And anybody who's traipsing through our political system has sold out. I'm not saying that leaves us in a good place, but I think we have to stop buying into the okey doke in order to understand who we truly are.
And
Melanated people are the owners of this country. This is a melanated country,
correct.
and we need to reclaim it. That's my position.
And I think
And we could only do it through consciousness.
through the
Can't do it
consciousness.
through violence.
Correct.
It's only by our thinking and our choices.
That's correct. And I think getting, and I did say it earlier, but getting to know oneself and drilling down to the spirit, to the soul of oneself, And that even means if you have to tap into the DNA, which you do, that's how you get cognizance of who you are to be able.
I totally agree. That's how I got to the position I'm in.
Right, and it took some time. It took time.
Well, I'm almost 70.
Okay.
I'm 69. Took a long time.
Okay.
A real long time.
Okay.
I'm just grateful I'm at a point where I'm so confident in who I am, who we are as beings, that I no longer fear death.
Wow. That's good.
I no longer feel humans. I don't care about anyone's opinion. I don't care if people like me. I don't care about any of that stuff.
I like that.
You could hate, troll me.
Right.
I don't give a damn. I'm going to speak my mind.
You're going to speak your mind. You're going to speak your truth.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
I mean, we don't know how much time we have. I could get sick or be exposed to something. I could be attacked. I could be whatever. How many years do you have left when you're at 70? I'm not quite there, but next year. I don't have any more time to waste.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you what I think. Take it or leave it. I don't give a damn.
I like that. I like that.
I don't give a damn.
I like that.
Whatever.
I like that. I like that.
I mean, I have a lot of nieces and nephews in the world. I don't have children.
Right.
But I have hundreds of family and nieces and nephews and babies. Am I supposed to contribute to a world that's going to crush them? No. Under no circumstances will I do that.
And you're speaking your truth. And at the end of the day, not only speaking your truth, but if you are a creator, you're able to create. Because if you live in fear, you can't create. You're not an artist at that point. So at the end of the day, you must be a creator. You live as a creator. You are a creator. And yes.
The question is, what are you creating?
What are you creating? Right.
I think that's the question we need to ask. We are creators, and we do create, whether we're healthy, toxic, sane, insane. We're going to create something.
Right. It's what do we create?
Right. The question is, take responsibility for what we can create and what we contribute to. I mean,
and fear not.
Mm-hmm.
Fear not of who you are. You are the one that you have been waiting for. Fear not. Because if you live in fear, you can't create.
Well, you can, but it becomes a miscreation.
It could become, yes, it can become a miscreation. But fear not, because once you start living not in fear, then you're able to do better things that you want. Because it's coming from inside. Everything is from within. It doesn't come outside and come in. It's from within.
Which is why I say, read the scriptures, but don't just read one. Read them all.
Right.
Because there's a element of truth and knowledge in everything. Like I always call, like, you know how they have an Adam and Eve don't eat from the tree of good and evil?
Correct.
I consider scriptures to be the books of good and evil. There's good and there's evil. It's up to us to discern which is which.
And also, if I can add on to what you're saying, is not to get caught in religion. Because you have several religions, many religions, but it's spirituality that takes you to that door. Matter of fact, spirituality will open that door for you. It's not religion. But if you look at religion, you have many religions. And people are separated and divided when it comes to religion. My religion is better than your religion. What did your religion do last? No, it's not about that. It's about spirituality, tapping into because God is the God of all. Of all.
That is true. There is no hierarchy of humanity. We're all equal beings, is what we choose to do with this gift of life that makes all the difference. And also, with regard to the scriptures, I believe God speaks directly, but we're living at an age and time where the veil is very thin.
Yes, I agree.
And we can have our direct communication. We don't have to read the interpretation of what God said to somebody 6,000 years ago. We can ask Him ourselves, what's up? I mean, I remember when I was somewhere midway between my journey, we would have a lot of people coming to the house, knocking on the door.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saved? I'm like, from what? I need to be saved from you. But the idea is that there's this, like, all these mental slavery chains have been implemented generation after generation, and every generation they invent something new. If it's religion, or if it's politics, or if it's corporate, I think that we're living during an era when all of this will crash. It seems to be looking like it's going to happen soon. May or may not, but
at the end of the day, I think coming back to touch on what you're saying, we're living in the time of Aquarius, right? And where nothing is hidden anymore. Everything has to be unveiled. And so when you're living in truth and things are unveiled, you have to move forward in truth. And that's it. There's no turning back at this point. It's moving forward now with understanding of who you are, an understanding of the God that's within you,
mhm,
and not waiting for somebody to give you something when you are a creator of yourself.
mhm. And I do, and you're right. I think we have to start reaching to our ancestors to begin the understanding the lessons that they lived through. And they're right around us wanting to share that with us, for us to hear them. And for those who are ancestors who are corrupted, because many of them
That's true.
were corrupted,
That's true.
hey, they were corrupted.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what race you are, we all have corrupted ancestors, I promise you.
I hear you. I mean, that's the truth.
And we gotta kind of draw the line and say, you know what? I'm not gonna follow that path.
Right.
And I think that if we really begin to surrender some of this fear-based spirituality and fear-based thinking and magical thinking, like the world is going to transform overnight. We've been saying that since 2012. Ain't happened yet.
Right.
Because it actually requires work. It actually requires engagement. It requires understanding. And we can't be running around behaving like so-called devils, attacking each other, canceling each other,
Yeah.
criticizing each other. If
Yeah.
you don't toe the party line, we're going to destroy you. If you look on YouTube, what is it all about? So and so destroyed so and so. It's like, really? How about so and so enlighten somebody? We need to be discerning, each and every one, if we're going to change anything. And we have to really look at the lessons that are in our DNA.
True.
I promise you, everyone in their DNA has a hero and has a villain. We all have those traits. We're all human. We need to stop judging each other. It's easy as a black person to say, oh, it's white people's fault. But no, I don't believe that that's the truth. I believe that they may have been the first to fall to these forces and the first to become the tool of these toxic energies, consciousness,
Mm.
um, something that's not of this world. I believe part of spirituality is understanding if you really believe there is a Most High,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to believe He's not the only one, right? He created vast universes of beings at all kinds of levels of existence. And probably at many of those levels, there are corrupt beings.
Mm.
I think what humanity has over all those beings is that we, as a human race, we may not be the only human race, it might be multiplied many times across the universe, but I believe that the Creator has, and which is why they say we are gods,
Mhm.
we have been endowed
Mhm.
with all that the Most High is. And He's just waiting around for us to figure it out. Because of time, there is no time, life is eternal.
Mhm.
He can wait. He got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to live in, what kind of relationships we want to have, what kind of energy we want to manifest in the world. Are we going to be giving our the blessings of our creation to some evil force to create havoc? That's the choice that God is waiting for us to make, if there is a God, if there is a Most High. He's like, I can wait. I ain't going nowhere. You want to take another millennia? Okay, I'm bored. I'll sit around and watch you tomfoolery for another millennia.
Okay.
It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want, what kind of human being we choose to be, what kind of relationships and community we build. And from my vantage point, that has to be the conversation, not who's running for office. Because the whole political system is a game of control, either tangentially or directly. None of these people have our interest. I don't care what color they are.
Okay. Well,
That's just me.
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Want to thank Community Cuts family for joining us. And we're going to ask you to subscribe. And actually, we're in the studios today. Next week, we'll be back in the Salon Lehing, 732 Washington Avenue between Prospect Place and Park Place. Please support them. They are a black-owned business. It's been in the business for about 20 years, and she which is the owner, Winston. She's awesome, and the other,
Yeah, she is.
yeah, everybody else, everybody there is awesome. So we are asking for people to come through. We call ourselves Brooklynites. Yeah, this is Brooklyn. Come on down and support one another. And
And you can tune in from everywhere and anywhere. And you can support the channel by subscribing and commenting. Go
yes.
ahead, troll me. I don't care. Make a comment. Really? Because it's about opening the conversation and
Yeah.
being real and understanding that, from my vantage point, with regard to the current dynamic, we've had enough first black this and that. Let's truly manifest the melanated godhood you're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
Let's not give our power away to whatever force wants to control our vote so that they can come in and do whatever the hell they want, ultimately, which will destroy our communities. It's not about black and white. If we really look at it, unfortunately, for people who identify as white, I don't consider them white, but they identify as white, you're next. So maybe it's time to wake up.
I concur at this juncture. I concur.
We need to stop fighting over petty stuff and really look at the world for what it is and understand who we are and recognize that we have tremendous power within us as long as we don't sell it off to the highest bidder for a few coins. That is not going to help us when we pass to the other side.
Well, with that being said, I want to say goodnight to our Community Cuts family. We're here every week. Next week we'll be at the salon
Mhm.
at 7 o'clock, and we just ask you to tune in and share the video. Share it. We're here, and we're gonna, we're speaking truth.
And our idea really is to let everyone speak their position and their mind. I don't expect actually anyone to agree with me. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not there to disempower anybody, or you're not there to control anybody, because neither of us and none of us know everything. I'm going to learn something from everyone who makes comment.
So make a comment. She's asking you to make a comment.
Real,
Yeah.
for real. I mean, make a comment, come by, participate in the videos.
Yeah, we're open.
The only way this is going to work if we gather each other's wisdom and build it into a quilt to restore humanity. And that's really my vision.
Like that. Truly like that. Like that. Yes. Oh, family, we're going to say goodnight to you, to the viewership, to Community Cuts family, and much blessings as always to you and to your family. Until next week, live in peace, live in love, and start to create your own. God bless.
Namaste.
Namaste.
And bye for now.
Peace.